from Southwest Florida's news source, this is Fox 4 News at 6.
Sounds of terror. Loved ones praying for the best, but bracing for the worst.
You really can't describe it. I mean, you really can't, especially all the waiting to find out if your son's okay.
At least 50 people dead, many more hurt, after a community is targeted by hate and torn by terrorism.
When you put weapons in the hands of idiots, haters, bigots, and fools, people will die, and we have to stop it!
Orlando, now the site of the deadliest mass shooting in American history.
Words really can't express the depth of our sorrow or the measure of our grief.
And as the nation grieves, Fox 4 is putting names and faces to the innocent lives lost. This as we uncover brand new details about the man behind the trigger. And authorities say 29-year-old Omar Mateen of Fort Pierce was responsible for that 3-hour reign of terror during what was supposed to be an evening of fun. Armed with a powerful gun, he slaughtered 49 people and injured another 53 at an LGBT nightclub. He even took some clubgoers hostage for hours early yesterday morning before a SWAT team broke down the door and shot him. 4 in Your Corner has complete team coverage on this developing story in Orlando tonight. Warren Wright speaking with relatives of some of the victims. But we begin tonight with Diane Gallagher with more on Mateen's extreme motivations and what other people are also being investigated. Diane?
And in the day after our nation's deadliest mass shooting, authorities are still trying to look into this gunman, figure out exactly what made him do this, including connections to an American suicide bomber in the past, saying that he attended mosque with him and was investigated by and questioned by the FBI before because of his relationship and expressing sympathies. Also trying to figure out whether or not he acted alone.
This is being treated as a terrorist investigation.
One day after the deadliest terrorist attack on American soil since 9/11, President Obama says that the massacre appears to have originated here on American soil.
This is certainly an example of the kind of homegrown extremism that all of us have been so concerned about for a very long time.
Authorities are learning more about the gunman, 29-year-old Omar Mateen, who was born in New York to Afghan parents. But at this point in the investigation, officials say there is no evidence to suggest that Mateen was directed to carry out Sunday's attack by a terrorist network.
There are strong indications of radicalization by this killer and of potential inspiration by foreign terrorist organizations.
Now, the FBI says it's been tracking Mateen since May 2013 after disturbing reports that he was claiming his family had connections to al-Qaeda and that he had a desire to martyr himself.
And over the next 10 months, we attempted to determine whether he was possibly a terrorist, something we do in hundreds and hundreds of cases all across the country.
As for the victims and family members, it will be a long road to recovery. The attack left 49 people dead and another 53 injured. Some are still in grave condition. The LGBT community and the city of Orlando are coming together to denounce the attack and support one another.
Our message is do not give in to terrorism having the last laugh. We will never, ever, ever support terrorists winning on American soil.
And I just talked to a man who lives on the same street as the Pulse nightclub, and he says he loves this community. He doesn't want to leave, but it is really haunting for him to go outside and see strange cars still parked on his street that have not moved since that night. Reporting live in Orlando, I'm Diane Gallagher. Back to you.
Thank you, Diane. While baristas, bouncers, accountants, while different in so many ways, they do have one thing in common. They all lost their lives in the deadliest mass shooting in our country's history. Authorities have released the names of most of the 49 people killed, and these are just a handful of some of those victims. For nearly 2 days, anguished relatives have been awaiting word on the fate of their loved ones. And 4 in Your Corner's Warren Wright is live in Orlando tonight, where he got a chance to speak with some of those family members. Warren?
We're hearing from a number of people who are inside the nightclub the night of the shooting, and the way they describe the shooter is someone simply cold-blooded and utterly vicious. One young man was shot in the back 4 times. His relatives have gone to visit him in the hospital. Here's a description of how their conversation went. Listen in, it's very revealing.
He was telling us just a horrific story of being, stuck in the bathroom stall, and there was 30 other people in that bathroom stall, and they couldn't see the shooter, but they heard him laughing really loud, like ha ha ha. Like when he laughed, the shooter, I guess, took the gun and sprayed under the bathroom stall, and then sprayed on top of the bathroom stall. So then the body started collapsing, and blood was going everywhere in the handicap stall. 30 people squished in there, getting shot. So then he had to climb over the bodies to try to climb on top, and he said it's just horrific. Like every little noise that he hears is bothering him, and his family is trying to survive this. And while he was getting shot, he felt the shots coming into his skin and just piercing his skin, and he felt the warmth of it, so he thought he was going to die, and he made it. He got shot on his birthday, which was June 12th, and he made it alive.
Relatives tell us this young man will be released from the hospital within the next 24 hours. His family members say they are grateful that he is going to get one more birthday. Now, coming up later in our newscast, we're going to be talking to some Islamic leaders who are fearful of a backlash, as well as Christian leaders here in the community that are reaching out, offering spiritual support. That's next, coming up at 6:30. Warren Wright, live in Orlando. Fox 4 in your corner.
All right, thank you, Warren. Well, while many relatives head to the hospital to visit loved ones targeted in that attack, a lot of people who escaped the rampage have returned to the scene of the crime. 4 in your corner's Todd Walker continuing our coverage tonight. Todd?
Yesterday may have just been too soon, but today we saw several people who were inside the Pulse nightclub early Sunday morning come back here to the scene. They came to pay their respects, tell their stories, and to let people know that while this was an attack on the LGBT community, everyone here is suffering. The area around Pulse nightclub is still blocked off as investigators comb through a gruesome scene. All the bodies have been removed from the club. People who were inside describe an unimaginable scene of chaos. One man says he played dead on the floor until he could escape.
I'm still seeing people run. I'm still seeing, people try to hop over the fence, crawl under little holes, just trying to find a way to get out. I'm not supposed to be here. I'm supposed to be with the other 50.
There are still people in the hospital in very grave condition, so the death toll could still go up. As of right now, it stands at 49 people. In Orlando, Florida, I'm Todd Walker. Back to you.
All right, thank you, Todd. Meanwhile, federal agents and local authorities have spent the last 2 days raiding the Fort Pierce home of the suspected gunman, Omar Mateen. Right now, we want to give you a look. This is brand new video taken by one of his neighbors early this morning. You can see agents there. They're dressed in white uniforms. They have blue gloves on. One is kneeling down. They are taking things out of his car. This, of course, they're taking evidence. Those who knew him say he always kept to himself, Omar Mateen, and they say he was not very friendly.
He's very quiet. I've seen him a couple times, never really said much to him, and that was kind of odd because, like I said, everybody around here says good morning or how you doing or just, common talk, and he never said anything.
Our team coverage continuing now with 4 in your corner's John Shainman, who's looking into Mateen's history, including his tenure as a private security guard.
He was an angry person, violent in nature, and a bigot to almost every class of person.
Dan Gilroy worked with Omar Mateen for about a year between 2014 and 2015. The two worked as security guards at PGA Village in Port St. Lucie. Gilroy says Mateen often made homophobic, sexist, and racist remarks.
He would hit things, and as he was hitting things, he would yell, and of course there was always curse words involved in that. And this wasn't seldom, it was almost all the time.
Gilroy said it took very little to set Mateen off. For example, a perceived snub from a motorist passing through.
Said, I hate all those ends and I wish I could just kill them all.
After his request to be transferred was denied, Gilroy told Mateen he didn't want to continue their relationship on a personal level anymore.
He acted very negatively towards this. He then started to text me 20, 30 times a day, call me 15, 20 times a day.
As a former Fort Pierce police officer, Gilroy said Mateen's actions didn't scare him, but once his family became concerned, he quit. He wishes now there was something more he could have done.
I saw it coming. I mean everything. He told me he was going to do it. Besides the date and the location, he said he was going to kill a whole bunch of people.
It's scary. Well, we also want to point out that Mateen filed for divorce, from his ex-wife in 2011. His ex-wife has said that he was mentally unstable. Now, his father, speaking out, says that he met with him one day before the attack in Orlando and claims there was no evidence that Mateen was planning this type of attack, and he has since condemned his son's actions.
I wish he was alive. I could ask him the same question that you have, and I cannot tell you why he did do such act. This is against the principle of me and the whole family.
And that's Mateen's father there speaking out. He also went on to apologize to the families of the victims. Now, Sunday's attack is still prompting an outpouring of public support, as you can imagine. For the past 2 days, people have been lining up in droves. This is outside of Orlando blood banks. They're looking to donate their blood and help out. And the same can be said for right here in Southwest Florida as well. 4 News Corner's Malcolm Johnson is at the Community Blood Center in Naples with more on how you can get involved. Malcolm?
Well, here at NCH, there is a community blood drive. We're starting today. People can donate their own blood right here for the Orlando shooting victims.
195 miles separates Naples and Tampa, but when Sunday morning's Orlando massacre resulted in the bloodshed of dozens, NCH and Naples wants distance to be no deterrent in saving lives.
When we see a disaster the magnitude that was experienced in Orlando, we know that they're going to have a very high demand and they need to have the blood on the shelves ready to treat those patients at that time.
The Community Blood Center at NCH helps ensure blood reaches those shelves through the generosity of volunteer donors like David, who's still distraught over the devastation.
My immediate reaction? Sorrow. So it was very sad.
As he lays in the patient bed, pumping his blood away, he knows each drop is a valuable contribution.
We can't be there to help them, but we can help them in this way.
And David's donation could go a long way. This unit of blood here that he donated could go towards saving 3 lives.
And with over 50 people in the hospital, there's a need for an adequate supply of blood for every patient. Malcolm Johnson, Fox 4, in your corner.
Thank you, Malcolm. The organization One Blood has also set up donation centers throughout Southwest Florida. There's one in Fort Myers. It's at the Plantation Shops Drive area. Another one in Cape Coral on Del Prado Boulevard, and yet another in Port Charlotte, which is on Harbor View Road. Still to come tonight on Fox 4 News at 6, justified or going too far? An officer's encounter with a suspect in Punta Gorda that has the department facing a lawsuit. Plus, off the hook, why a student charged in the sex scandal at South Fort Myers High School might be escaping the charges that he's facing. But first, 4 in your corner examining so-called soft targets and what can be done to keep you safe when you head out to do everyday things like shopping or eating at a restaurant. That's next on Fox 4 News at 6. Derek?
Amy, it looks like rain chances are on the increase as we head towards this weekend. Complete details coming up.